The views and opinions expressed in these historical letters that may contain vernacular used in the World War II era, the post-war era, and the Cold War era do not reflect the views and opinions of any of the individuals involved with this project, including, but not limited to, the podcast's creators. Morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Allison.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very good. And for our audience, we should let everybody know, and I think people sort of understand this, we do record early some of the episodes. The morning that this episode is going to drop, Jamie and I are going to be en route to Chicago for the Podcast Movement Evolutions Conference to learn so many more things about podcasting so we can take Love Sweetie podcast to the next level. So we're going to be traveling together. We're going to try to get some fun footage out there in Chicago. It's certainly a place that Sweetie traveled through as she needed to get between Iowa and Philadelphia area a bunch of times throughout her life. But I'm looking forward so much to that, Jamie.
Oh, me too. It's going to be so much fun. I'm looking forward to doing some planning together. And also, we are hoping to record some things.
Yeah, some cute little
So that'll
items.
be really fun.
For sure, yeah. But for today's episode, we're on episode 49.
I know. We're getting to that milestone, another one of those milestones.
Heading to episode 50. And we're now somehow so quickly into season 2 in the second half of 1946 at this point.
So in our last episode, we learned that Sweetie and Lew got their house.
They did.
Finally. And with a lot of, Sweetie, I think, put a lot of work into that.
Oh my gosh, no sewing machine. That's going to be a whole thing. But she's working with it. She's working with it. It's a smaller house. She's handling it. There's a lot going on. But she is happy to not be at 936 Springfield Road. And she is happy now to be at Love Lane in Norwood. That's still Delco, I should mention. I believe that's still Delaware County. So she's not too far from the in-laws. But she's far enough away.
No, they're very close. Yeah.
She needs her space. So I'm happy that she has it. And today, it's all Sweetie. So we're going to proceed through the end of the summer of 1946. We have 4 big letters and then one smaller update right at the end. So another document coming in. And that's going to lead us into the second half of August here. So really, it's the complete end of the summer. We know that Sweetie's been planning a trip back home. So we're going to see if there's more updates about that. There's a lot of things that were still out there. Right at the end of the last episode, there was a theft that occurred in the machine shop that Lew, I guess, was trying to figure out what was going on and how that had happened. And so we'll look to see if we get an update with that. But I guess we'll just dive right into this first letter of the episode here, Jamie. Oh, before I do, oh my gosh, I'm like so excited about Chicago and other things that
I know.
It's just kind of mind-blowing for me. Like episode 49, heading to Chicago. Hey, everybody who's new to the Love Sweetie podcast, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're a returning listener and you haven't already done so, please like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I know I'm a bit of a broken record with that, but it really does help us. If you are listening on audio platforms, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the other audio channels, if you could leave a review, we very much appreciate that. And of course, and we'll go to the website a little bit today because there's some updates there, but definitely check out our website at www.lovesweetiepodcast.com for photos, family tree, things that are going to be referenced in today's episode for more details. There's a lot there that people can explore, especially if you're catching up or if you just haven't explored them yet. So a lot of great content. But let's get started with the first letter today, Jamie, coming in here from July 25th.
37 South Love Lane, Norwood Park, Norwood, Pennsylvania, July 25th, 1946. Dear Sister, Mama, Daddy, and Jean, Daddy's and Sister's letters arrived, and I think I'd better answer them too, while I have a typewriter, and can do the job quickly. First, let me say this. Daddy is threatening me with some sort of embarrassing method of getting me to write better than I have been doing. It is shameful, I know, but let me tell you this. Don't write to Lew's mother with the idea that she'll answer it quickly and tell you all the goings-on, for she's as much of a laggard as I when it comes to writing letters. I will try to do a better job. Just as a writer, as you've seen these past few days, it certainly does make a difference in the correspondence I can turn out. I guess I'll answer the questions I found, and then go on to the small items that may be of interest. Lewis does not crawl. He can go from a sitting position to the crawl position on hands and knees. Somehow his legs always slide backwards from under him, so that he is on his hands and stomach. From there on, he is at a standstill. He merely stays that way and says, "No, no, no, nda, nda," which soon becomes a call for help, and he must be rescued, and again the procedure is repeated. If something gets out of his reach, and it often does, he'll sit and in his baby way swear at it, rather than crawl after it. He's far more interested in standing up than in crawling. He pulls himself up easily now in his crib, playpen, or by using the furniture. He walks around the edges of his crib and playpen, but if he does get to a standing position with the furniture to help, he will just stand there and doesn't try to walk. We do mean to come to make the visit. That is definite, but when or how or who is yet to be decided. We're waiting to see if Lew will get some time, to see if we're going to be able to buy a car, or if I'll come alone with Lewis by train. Lew said, after reading Daddy's last letter, in which he said, "You will not be able to make your visit in a mere 10 days. Maybe you'd better go now and stay, say a month. He is afraid that Daddy will get sore at him if we don't get to come and stay long enough."
Yeah, and I wanted to break here because, first of all, she is way too critical of herself here.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite parts is where she says, she's talking about if they attempt to get correspondence from Sydney, from Lew's mom. For she's as much of a laggard as I when it comes to writing letters. Sweetie, who do you think is writing longer letters than you, like, anywhere?
I don't know who she thinks she's fooling.
Who are you comparing yourself to here? Because wow for that person, but no, I don't think you're a laggard. I think she gets annoyed that she gets delayed in when she wants to write the letter, but when she gets to writing,
oh yeah.
like,
She just, like, I mean, these letters have been huge.
Oh
Well,
my
she's
God.
got her typewriter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, she has Dit's typewriter.
She has Dit's typewriter, yeah.
And is out of Collindale. So she's like at home with little Lewis, Lewis, you know, doing this. And so like that she's able to write if he lets her. But yeah, I don't know why I think I do know why though, because Chester's last letter to her in the beginning and the end, he's like, here's some postcards, write.
Yeah.
So she probably, and you know, she has that inferiority complex.
Right. So it's playing on.
So yeah. So I think that's her maybe trying to work her way through that. But yeah, but I think Chester kind of might have had a little hand in that as well.
We went to Sears Roebuck yesterday, over on 69th Street, 1 block beyond Hell's Half Acre, to find out about the sewing machine. I thought surely we'd be close to the head of the list by now, and the man informs us that it will be another 3 months at least. Heavens, we'll be beyond our need for clothes by then. It is a darn nice machine and much cheaper than the name sewing machines. I'm surely looking forward to it, though, and when it does come, no doubt it will have the needles run down to mere nubs of their original size. We also bought Lewis his first pair of Wee Walker hard-soled shoes. They are 3.5 and lock like nice shoes. I hope he doesn't outgrow them too quickly. We have tried them on him, and the poor child walks as though he had 3, and I mean 3, club feet. Yes, indeed we do like the house on Love Lane. I like it so much that it makes me feel badly that you folks aren't here to see it.
It's the sewing machine saga.
The sewing machine saga. When is she going to get the sewing machine?
Because in the last letter, she said
2
months.
Right.
And now 3 months?
Mm-hmm. We'll see. Yeah. See if this happens. Now, I should reference for people outside of Pennsylvania, 69th Street. This is Philadelphia. So that's 69th Street right now. That's considered West Philadelphia. There's a big station there. So that's a major location in Philadelphia, especially at this time. But yeah, so they're going to Philly, trying to get a sewing machine further on the wait list. We'll see.
I do get lonesome for somebody my own age. The houses are close enough, but there's too much difference in the people to make for much friendship. They are either beyond me financially, or else they are the would-be hoi polloi, the upswept hairdo, cigarette-dangling characters Or else the undesirables. I'm still just a Carrie Nation at heart, I guess. There is a young couple on our immediate right who are buying their house under the GI Bill. Take a good look at the picture I sent. Imagine one half of the front of the house as a stone veneer, where ours is all the same, and they paid $4,000 and something for it. Rather, they'll be paying for it for the next 19 years. I can't see it. They have a 7-month-old boy, just plain average people, I think. They've been quite friendly. This morning she came over bright and early to knock at my door. She was visibly upset and asked me if I'd take care of her little boy while she took their pedigreed Cocker Spaniel to a vet. I said yes, I'd be glad to, but when I went to question her a little, she said that the dog was lying rigid on the floor. She was going to have to wrap it in a blanket and carry her to a vet. We're a mile from Chester Pike, and she'd have to walk another half-mile on the pike, 'cause she couldn't take a dog like that on the bus. We've had Elizabeth's car, as well as her typewriter, so I said we should take the car instead of her trying to carry that sick dog. We did. We had Lewis's car seat, for him, and we put the dog on the back seat floor, and she held her baby, and away we went. The dog had been sick, and they had taken it to the vet several times, but this time the vet said there was nothing he could do for it, but put it to sleep, which he did. I stayed outside with the babies to await the decision, but as soon as she came out the door red-eyed, I needed no question to know. It was a beautiful little dog. They got her at a kennel with all the papers to show her quality for about $25. She came in with me to sit and talk a little, and soon she went home feeling much better. Aside from this young couple, I have no friends here, and might just as well be situated in the Gobi Desert, as far as companionship is concerned.
Oh, sad story.
That is really sad, but I'm so glad that she was there to help.
She was there to help, yeah. And that's just her instinct is, are you kidding me? You're not going to walk holding this dog a mile, and all this other stuff with the children and things like that. And she's like, nope, we're going to solve this rationally. I have this car. It's obviously an emergency. We're going to take care of it. But outside of this one couple, she's a fish out of water. She doesn't connect with the other people that she's around. Where she's mentioning earlier, people that are kind of are showing that they have a lot of wealth, right? The upswept hairdo, the cigarette dangling characters. And then she says, or else the undesirables. So she's just kind of stuck in the middle, and she's like, I'm just trying to start my family, and she's only connecting with this one other couple that's there, and they've bought their house. Now, it seems that Sweetie and Lew are renting. This other couple's paying the $4,000, and she says, even with the GI Bill, which was so beneficial to so many people, it's still going to take 19 years to pay off. What we know in this area, in this the project area that they're in, they're not that big, these homes. This is the starter home, and she's already saying it's probably going to take so long for this couple to pay this off. But they're all making do with what they have. And then she mentions I loved her reference to Carrie Nation. She's used this nickname before for herself, Carrie Nation being the pre-prohibition individual who didn't drink. So she's just saying, I don't connect with everybody who's pretty much out partying and doing all that stuff.
That's not her cup of tea.
No, it's not.
That was such an interesting description of all the other people. And if there's only one other person in the neighborhood that she can connect with, at least that's immediately next to her.
Yes.
So, I mean, there's that. And, she hasn't ventured out far. But I also think that Sweetie hasn't really had much time because they moved in. She's been cleaning. She had to do all these things, curtains. Lewis was sick. Lew got sick. She's planning a trip. Just there's so much going on. So, I mean, she's a little hard on herself. I can understand being a little lonesome.
Daddy has finally commented on the impression he got from Mark. I'm not surprised to hear that they drink, and I can't share Daddy's surprise that he'd say that Helen Francis drinks either. I was only 13 when I stayed that summer with Aunt Mary and Uncle Cyril, but I learned then that Helen Francis was as interested in being cosmopolitan, I'm positive that's her expression, as she was in anything else. She was afraid of being classed as small time and bragged to me about the dates she had and what all they did. Just kids horsing around, but you can go back to the old adage, as the twig is bent. She'd probably brag about it, too. She had quite a mean trick of playing Aunt Mary against Uncle Cyril and vice versa. That was the cause for many quarrels and many of Aunt Mary's tears while I was there. No, I'm not surprised at all. I'd like to see Uncle Cyril on his visit. I wonder at his starting out on a trip like that, if he is not getting around very well.
All right, I have to pause here because there's a lot of characters being mentioned in this section, and there's clearly some old history that's being referenced here. And we do get a lot of clues about some of Sweetie's other family members that we haven't heard as much about. So I was working through this entire, like literally really detective through this section because we get the comment about someone named Mark. We hear about Helen Francis. And then she gives some information, a little nugget of information about her childhood, about before she went to Parsons and before the timeline of the podcast starts. We started the podcast in 41 when she was 18. She graduated high school. She's talking about when she was 13. And I love when these little sections come up because we can continue to piece together Sweetie when she was growing up. So I'm going to explain who everybody is. And I think that's going to help.
That's good, yes.
Yep. So the first clue is we're seeing Aunt Mary and Uncle Cyril. We've heard about Uncle Cyril before. We've talked about Uncle Cyril before. Uncle Cyril is Cyril Demery. That's Chester's brother. And Mary is his wife. Now, they're in Indiana. This is the Indiana family. And Cyril had a lot of background in farming. We know that he came out in 1945 to help Chester decide if he wanted to buy the farm. You know, Chester was taking his brother's advice quite seriously. Mark is Cyril's son. So that's Mark Demery. So that is one of Cyril's kids. Now, Cyril, in his lifetime, he had 3 kids. And they're all already alive by the point that this story comes up in the podcast. So the first kid he had was a daughter named Catherine. And then he had Mark. And the third child that he had was Helen Francis. So these 2 individuals, Mark and Helen, who are being mentioned here, they're Sweetie's cousins on the Demery side. And she stays with that family when she's 13. Aunt Mary's actually his second wife. So Cyril had 2 wives, and Cyril's first wife was named Hazel. And so Mark and his other daughter, Catherine, were the children that he had with Hazel. But then Hazel passes away.
Oh, no.
And so Cyril becomes a widower. And then he marries Mary. That's the Aunt Mary being referenced. And the 2 of them have Helen. So Mark and Helen are half siblings. And I also picked up on something interesting here too. Chester and Cyril are 2 years apart. And we know Chester has other siblings, but he mentions Cyril more than anybody else. We hear about Cyril more than anybody else. Sweetie and Jean are 2 years apart. So I'm pretty sure the sisterly bond that they have is very close to the brotherly bond that Chester and Cyril has. So much so that when she was 13, she went to stay a summer with Cyril and Mary. That's important because she's 13, and when she was 13, it was 1935. It's the midst of the New Deal. Chester's at the Civilian Conservation Corps. All of Sweetie's siblings are older, so they're probably with the family, but because she was 13, it was probably just better off for her to stay with Uncle Cyril. And remember, we did have that commentary where there was some sort of custody papers that Cyril had with relation to Sweetie. And I think that's all in like this realm. Something's going on here. Now, Helen Francis was a few years older than Sweetie, but she mentions that Helen was interested in being cosmopolitan. Helen Francis, at the time that she knew her and stayed with her, was like 16 at the time.
The Great Depression, and she was 13. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So like you're in Indiana, the Great Depression has happened. You're out in the rural countryside. What 16-year-old girl doesn't kind of have dreams of being cosmopolitan and going to the city? So we get a little bit there. Now they're talking about, you know, individuals might drink at this point. Obviously, these individuals are older. So, and Sweetie doesn't drink. We don't really hear about Chester drinking either. So there just doesn't seem to be a lot of drinking going on there. But I thought there was so much packed into this little paragraph that can reveal so much about Sweetie's early life and the relationship between Chester and Cyril, and try to sort of decode some of that early custody stuff that had been talked about many, many episodes ago. It was just so fascinating. So I had to go into that.
Oh yeah, this is This is incredible. So it's cool to have these little, and we hear about Uncle Cyril all the time. Yeah. So getting more information about Uncle Cyril is really fun.
Yeah. And by the way, that little phrase, as the twig is bent, and then she cuts it off, the full phrase is actually, as the twig is bent, so is the tree inclined. And it basically means that there's early influences that have an effect later down the line. So it's a neat little quote to have in the middle of that. But yeah, what a great part to get that information and to hear about the cousins. So we'll return to this at the end of this letter, because I have updated the site so people know where to go to find some more information about Uncle Cyril here.
Sister, the proof you sent of M.A. and Chris is just wonderful. I certainly would like to have a finished print of that enlarged and framed. I think M.A.'s short hair is very nice, and I can't see why she would bewail the fact that her braids are gone. She surely is pretty, and I'm proud to show the proof to my 1 or 2 visitors. If ever the devil had his picture taken, just look at the twinkle in Chris's eye, and those dimples. Well, really now, if M is as nice as these 2 are, your cup will surely overflow. We are having an adjustment made on the pictures that we bought from the door-to-door salesman. He is going to come out tomorrow to see about it, and so we shall have to delay sending them out a little longer yet. The swing that I wrote you about, remember, has certainly been worthwhile. I'm sure that M would enjoy one too. And I think that it could probably be made easily either by her daddy or her grandpa. I'll try to draw a sketch of it for you. It is very cloudy and humid again today, and it is quite uncomfortable to do much baby lugging or anything else for that matter. We've had a great amount of rain that has resulted in several creeks overflowing their banks, and people have had to leave homes. But I believe the damage is nothing serious. I'll write again soon, if I can. Enough for now. Love, Sweetie, Lew, and Lewis.
Yep.
Well, that was lovely. And man, that was a typed one. Mm-hmm. You can tell. Those ones are always bigger.
Yep. Yeah, she really gets into the details. But as promised, I wanted to show everybody this just really quickly. I'll go through this on the website because the update was made. If, especially for newer listeners, people that might not be aware of how to navigate this, if you go to Sweetie's Scrapbook, this is at the www.lovesweetiepodcast.com website, and you go to Sweetie's Scrapbook, and you go to the Family Tree Timeline and Podcast Glossary, you can either click on the text there or click on her picture, and go to the Family Tree section. This has been updated. We've been here a little bit before. You can access information about Cyril in 2 different sections. At the very bottom, there's a section for other family members. Not all the pages are up yet because we haven't gotten to the stories into a lot of them, but there is now a link for Sweetie's Uncle Cyril. Or you can go to Chester's page. I'm going to go to Chester's page, actually. This has been updated, and we can actually get now the name of all 5 siblings that Chester had. This just goes to show how much he doesn't mention the names of his other siblings in the letters, that we don't hear about them nearly as frequently, if at all, outside of Cyril. So he had 5 siblings. They were Nellie, Henry Merrill. We've heard the name Merrill just specifically before. Orrin. Haven't really heard about Orrin. Cyril, and then Sarah. So you can click on Cyril here because it's underlined, and it goes to some information here about Cyril. In this, it's noting that he's married to Mary Davis. That's Aunt Mary. But it does mention Hazel having passed away here, and he'd only been married to her for a couple of years. And then it mentions that she spent the summer there. So as we sort of build out the stories from the letters, we can kind of see what was going on with Cyril there. But definitely check that out on the website if you'd like to follow along more with the Demery family history. And I just get this idea that if there were more letters that survived between Cyril and Chester, and maybe some of Chester's future letters will talk more about his relationship with Cyril, I kind of feel that they had the same relationship between each other that we just don't have the letters for that Sweetie and Jean do. So it's just neat to kind of think about them writing back and forth. And Lord knows what trouble they got into.
Right.
Around their college days and things like that. They seem to me to be a bit of troublemakers. But yeah, so something to check out if people want to go through that and review that information. But next letter for today's episode, July 30th.
37 South Love Lane, Norwood Park, Norwood, Pennsylvania, July 30th, 1946. Dear Jean, Mama, and Daddy, Sister and family, Frank and Maida. Elizabeth has returned from her vacation, and since I must return her typewriter, I thought I must take advantage of it to turn out my wholesale family correspondence once more. Since this may be the last time that I can do so, I thought I'd make the entire rounds again today. I don't think the fellow who gets the last copy will have such difficulty this time. Lew stood watch in one of the office buildings on the base, and as a result, I have some nice new and thin carbon paper. That Navy sure takes a beating when Lew has to stand a watch. Yak, yak, yak. Now, I'll surely hate to give up the typewriter. I suppose it is useless to rehint my hint that you chip in to buy me a typewriter. The old Palmer method takes so long, and besides, I'd either have to write the same stuff over and over, or else you'd have to pass one letter around, round-robin style. Yes, there's no doubt you're a good nurse, Jean. But aren't you giving away too much free professional service? Or are you just being Lady Bountiful to give your service to the young girl next door? No doubt she was glad to get by without paying the doctor bill that would have been necessary. It is all right to make the 3 to 11 nurse at Lakeshore sweat for not having been very kind in making the remark in front of the chemist. But may I suggest that rather than just ignore the goon, catch her in an off moment before the chemist, and then burn her ears good. You'll find it much more effective, I think. I'm surely glad to hear that Mamma hasn't been knocked for the expected loop in having her teeth pulled. I shudder to recall my few experiences with the dentist, and hope that she will continue to get through the remaining ones as easily.
Oh, there's so much.
Yep.
There's so much. Okay, so let's just go right through this.
Yep.
Number 1, Jean is apparently helping a next-door neighbor, which is nice. And we actually know, I really think that this is just who Jean is.
Yeah.
She's just awesome and just gives it away. She kind of reminds me of you.
It reminds me of Chester, who during the Depression was doing doctor's visits for $1 just to help the people. So I want to say she gets it from him with the medical.
She does. She does. But then, there's this. This is my favorite part of Sweetie. My favorite part of her personality. How she's like, well, there must have been some kind of altercation or some kind of like argument or something.
Yeah.
That another nurse, and she's like, here's what you do.
Yeah.
Wait until she doesn't expect it, and then let her have it.
Burn her ears good.
Burn her ears good.
Yeah.
I like that. She's often given advice where she's like, you lay down that law. That's how she is. This is how Sweetie is, and I love her for it.
Yep. And then there's the whole other section earlier than this, though, that says, Sweetie's soon going to have to return the typewriter to Elizabeth.
I was just going to, not go there because it makes me sad. I just really didn't want to.
You know what? You don't need it. That's not okay.
She doesn't need it.
No.
What is she doing with it?
Yeah, clearly you didn't need it this whole time. So you went off to the Poconos to do your activities that you're going to do. You don't need the typewriter. Just let Sweetie have it. Let Sweetie have it. I also like about the Navy. Yeah, that little section. Lew stood what is it? Yeah. I think this may be the last time that I can do so. I thought I'd make the entire rounds again today. I don't think the fellow who gets the last copy will have such difficulty this time. Now, that's interesting. She's making multiple copies on carbon paper. Lew stood a watch in one of the office buildings on the base, and as a result, I have some nice new and thin carbon paper. So I'd like to thank the United States Navy for providing some writing materials to Sweetie so that she could send her carbons around. Thank you for your donation to the cause.
She's in rare form with this letter.
I believe I wrote you that the photographer came and took away the pictures of Lewis. They have to start all over again, in the printing, that is. We should have the good ones within a week. Lew talked to him about the ones that had spots on them. He said that it was a shame that they had to be thrown away and do nobody any good at all. The photographer is a young vet too, so he said to quit sobbing on his shoulder, and if he could, he'd send them back with the new ones to us, for free. I hope he does, for I'd sure like to have them. Of course, you'll all get one of the good ones as soon as they do come. The spotted ones could be sent to the family in Indiana, and a few friends of mine. Young Lewis is a scream. I'm really entertained all the time he is awake. He provides much glee, much to his disturbance. He often lifts his eyebrows to ask, Doina? He is smart, too, if I do say so myself, as shouldn't. He has been watching me gather up stockings, shoes, etc. to dress him. For a while I thought it merely coincidence that he stuck his foot in the air when time came to put on his shoes and socks. Now I think he really knows what he is doing. He holds his foot up for his sock. Once it is on his foot, he immediately wants to chew it, toes and all. However, when one foot is shod, he holds the other foot to be dressed too. He is fast becoming used to his hard-soled shoes, and rather than walk as though he had 3 club feet, he is improving. Yes, now he walks as though he was wearing 2 big overshoes. He will stand alone for just a few seconds, and when he finds he is on his own, he immediately gets watery legs, and they flow out from under him. I guess mosquitoes have been the cause of his spotted face. We go in with a flashlight at night and sometimes find them. I bought some tarletan, glorified mosquito netting or else poor quality crinoline, and endeavored to make him a mosquito netting to go over his crib. Without a sewing machine and with all that billowy stuff, it was quite a job, but I got it done, and the results have been highly satisfactory. I have a small piece left, and I'm going to try to make one out of it for the buggy. Mama, do you remember the little white feed sack with the red and blue figures on it? You gave it to me before Lewis was born. Well, I made him a sunsuit out of it, by hand of course. It is all done but buttons and buttonholes. We'll try to take his picture in it and send to you. I have much sewing to do, ripped seams, etc., etc., to do. But it surely is hard to get at it, when I know it has to be done that hard way. I haven't tried the DDT spray that you suggested, sister, just because I haven't been anywhere to buy it. When Lew gets home, the stores are closed, and I guess we'd have to go to a little bigger shopping district to find it. We're going to do so as soon as Lew has another 48.
Okay.
And I wanted to break here because I wanted to talk about the DDT.
Yep.
So this was used for pest control and they still do use this. Like they're still like this. I think that this is still something that in the South, like in Louisiana, the deep South, where you have like mosquitoes in the summer, they go out and spray it. So my education is in environmental health sciences. And the first thing when you get into that program and you start going to these classes, they beat into my head Rachel Carson and the Silent Spring. This was a book that she wrote. It highlighted the problem with DDT. DDT actually caused the thinning of eggshells in large birds, raptors.
Wow.
So this was responsible for this was one of the factors that was responsible for the depopulation of our bald eagles.
Oh.
So they got rid of this. They were like, this was definitely something that, they controlled it more. And now, when growing up, and I grew up in Ohio, we didn't have bald eagles, but when they started coming back, having a bald eagle nest, we would be like, there's a bald eagle nest. Now they're all over the place. They're all over. Like we saw one coming in, like we were driving on the turnpike, getting off the turnpike, and we saw one coming in. Last time I went to Ohio. So I think it's so interesting. And she was having that problem, and it turned out to be mosquitoes with Lewis. So I'm kind of glad she didn't use it. Because it's not a good thing. It is not a good thing. But yeah, I thought that was a really cool thing that
reference to bring up. It's something I didn't know for sure. But now there's no way I'll be able to separate that with the bald eagles. They really protect them in southeastern Pennsylvania. I've heard of bald eagle nests along the Delaware Canal, which is like of course the river between New Jersey and Pennsylvania, the Delaware River. There's bald eagle nests on like the Pennsylvania side or the Jersey side, and I'm sure this is nowhere near it. Everyone's extremely protective of them. But yeah, really big reference.
Yeah.
I don't believe I told you that we were invited next door to enjoy a big chicken dinner. They bought and roasted 2 chickens and spread out all the trimmings: dressing, corn, peas, carrots, muffins, lettuce, and tomatoes, and fruit cocktail for dessert. To repay us, I guess, for having helped to take their little dog to the vet. Now, of course, we are obligated to do likewise, and just as soon as they taste my cooking, we will have lost a couple of nice friends. Yak, yak. Lew still seems satisfied with his change to the Navy. He has been transferred from the line to the machine shop. They called for volunteers, and he let his patriotism run away with him again. He thinks he will like it better, though now he is outside in the sun a great deal, and it has done him good, but perhaps that won't make so much difference. He hasn't gained any weight, and I wonder if you could send him some vitamin pills. Oh, yes, and we are soon going to need some more baby powder, too. If you would rather just tell me how to mix it, I think I could go to a drugstore to buy the zinc oxide powder and save you the trouble of mixing and sending it to me. Maida and Frank, as soon as you know definitely when you are going to take your vacation, I wish you'd let me know. If Lew does get leave, of course we'll have to go home at that time. If he doesn't get any leave, I can afford to be choosy about when I come to visit and make our time coincide. Plans are not definite yet, pending the decision of the Navy Department of Personnel, but it looks doubtful that Lew will get leave this year. However, the Navy is unpredictable and are just likely to surprise us all the way around. I don't know. Maybe it is best that this typewriter does have to go home. It doesn't spell very well. Everybody write. This letter writing certainly is a vicious circle, isn't it? Love, Sweetie, Lew, and Lewis.
She's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh. This typewriter doesn't spell very well.
Yeah, it just like Chester was blaming the clock being slow for not getting to the service that he wanted to go to, I think in the last episode. He blames the clock, she blames the typewriter. No, I think it's user error. That's what we call that. User error on the typewriter, for sure.
And I just got a little bit of a flashback to when she was at Parsons College and she kept telling everybody to write her. Do you remember?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now it's like she's getting it back. Everybody write. It kind of like this has been one of the first times that she's kind of been like that. It used to be like pleading, everybody please write me, or all of you hate me. Yeah.
Now they're getting more into a routine with her in Pennsylvania too. So they have to adjust to the fact that she's going to be there and they've got to get these circulars figured out. So with the carbons, but yeah, it's a great letter. I love that we get a little follow-up that she still has the friends next door, and then her inferiority complex comes in again and says, once I cook for them, that's all going to be over. But I don't think so, sweetie. She's too hard on herself. And then Lew is getting some more opportunity. He's the one with experience working on engines, so he goes to the machinist shop. They're talking about the machine shop. He's almost always going to be working in the machine shop. This is his specialty. So they identify that, and there seems to be some opportunity that's building there. But heading into the next letter for this episode, as we head into August of 1946.
37 South Love Lane, Norwood Park, Norwood, Pennsylvania, August 9th, 1946. Dear Mama and Daddy, Jean, Frank and Maida, Sister, Bill, M.A., Chris, and M. You'd better not have any more children, or I'll not be able to get you all in on one line. As you have already noticed by the envelope, I am enclosing those much talked of, long-promised pictures of the boy wonder. They are all just alike, same pose, same quality, so no one is getting any better picture than anyone else. They are a very good likeness, I think, although with the delay in getting them, they are already outgrown. They were taken about 2 months ago, and I think he has changed much since then. They are good, though, I think, and of course we'll be anxious to hear what you think of them. He is sitting on the vanity bench that we bought with our second-hand bedroom set. Notice the clothes are the little white sunsuit trimmed with red rickrack and the little white shirt that Jean bought for him before he was born. The photographer didn't send along the ones that were spotted, and I presume that they were already discarded by the hired help. Just goes to show, you can't get something for nothing. I had a short letter from Florence just a day or so ago. She seems to be well, expresses her gratefulness for the babies, KM, and the one to come. She, KM, is spoiled, she says, but I guess that is to be found in any child. I'm preparing you now for what you will find in this little graham cracker crumb of ours. Excuse me, Lewis has fallen asleep in his swing, and I must go and put him in bed, lest he breaks his neck off at the hinge. By the way, that swing is a godsend, and I think I'll have to draw off a diagram for you, so you can see how it is made and either make one or buy it. Maybe Daddy could make one for Florence to use for this new baby. Sister, you ask about some pictures, taken when you were first married, is the way you described them. Do you mean the wedding pictures? Or do you mean those sepia-toned ones that we had taken here in Philadelphia on one of our trips? They were taken at our first wedding anniversary by a cousin on Lew's. I don't have any of the wedding pictures except our one set. I bought Daddy a set of them to be able to recopy them. The sepia-toned ones, I do have them someplace, but they have been boxed and tied up, and so I can't put my hands on them right away. However, you may have them if I can come across them. When that will be. So you may keep prodding me at intervals if you're really interested. Speaking of pictures, Frank and Maida, we were surely surprised to see how your Susie has changed. We were glad to get the picture, though, don't misunderstand. We think she may be looking more like Maida now than she did. Does anybody else think so? Or am I forgetting just what everybody looks like? Guessing from her little sweet smile, she is just as sweet as she looks. It is hard to imagine her pulling herself up to her feet, for she was so darn little when we saw her last. I agree that she could easily outdistance Lewis in walking earlier. However, I don't feel that it is any reflection on young Lard, for he has so much additional poundage to lug. Yet he isn't fat. He has creases, of course, that collect dirt and make a necklace, but he isn't. We surely will have a time with all the kids when we do all get together. Let me warn you now to keep your dainty little girls out of arm's reach. We have a genuine roughneck who brandishes his hobnailed boots without thought of anyone's safety. You remember how I used to, and still like to, poke black and blue spots? Well, with Lewis, when he comes at you with an index finger extended, you automatically shut your eyes and your mouth and just let your nose suffer the consequences. You know the old adage, forewarned is forearmed.
Yeah, so we get a lot of family updates here. A couple of things we know that Florence is expecting. Yeah. She mentions the graham cracker crumb of ours,
which is freaking adorable.
So adorable. And so then we get some updates. She's basically answering some questionnaires from what we can tell from other parts of the family. We get a little update here about Susie, which is Frank and Maida's first child. She was born right at the end of 1945, right after Lewis, actually. So that was the very end of season 1. And then this comment about the genuine roughneck. Like, oh yeah, this kid, he's a lot. He runs after people. But she gives the adage, which is so cute.
So. Yeah. She wants everybody to know. And I'm like, okay, so she must have had some kind of habit where she would like to poke your bruises.
Oh, ow. Yeah. And I guess Lewis picked it up.
And Lewis, yeah, that's like his thing too, is to poke you.
Yeah.
That's funny.
With my mosquito netting to completely cover the crib, we have successfully put an end to his bad mosquito bites and the welts on his face and body. However, we are now suffering the consequences. I don't believe I told you that this housing project was built within 1.5 blocks of the Darby Creek, on one of its meanders. Needless to say, we have mosquitoes the size of a small training plane, and they do pester us to beat the cars. You know, I don't think I'd mind a mosquito if it would come, bite, and then go away. But when they come to me with that darn dial tone buzzing, hover close by, leave, and then return to buzz some more, I'm ready to do a little dialing on my own.
I just love this, and I think, but it's the conclusion of this whole thing about the bugs. Because she'd worried so much about what this was. It was the mosquitoes, and she figured out the source.
You have asked for more details on Lew's duty, etc. So here we go, into a brief resume of that. Until just this last week, he was doing just what he had done all the time he was in the Navy. Line duty on small fighter aircraft, F-6Fs, F-4Us, SNJs, and smaller ones, and a few bigger ones too. He went to a school which was to acquaint them with the workings of the various types of planes. He seemed to enjoy it very much, though it isn't the type of educational program that they offer in on-the-job training. Until their organization is complete, their educational program has been delayed. However, when they have their entire complement, they are going to offer the educational program, we think. This week, however, they called for a volunteer to take charge of the machine shop. Take charge only because he is the only one there. He volunteered and has been trying in vain to find some way to make some tail locks for the planes. I say trying vainly because they have no machinery suitable to do the work. It has offered him some opportunity to show what he could do with little to work with, and I believe he did like it fairly well, at least. However, he came home last night with a worry-furrowed brow to say that somebody had evidently stolen a complete set of fraction drills, a complete set of outside micrometers, and a complete set of inside micrometers. They were the only things of value in the shop, and were kept under lock and key, and the keys were turned into the office at night. He reported them gone as soon as he discovered it, but of course there hasn't been enough time elapsed yet to tell just what will be done. There were some hydraulic jacks stolen too, and so we can't guess what will happen. We'll let you know as soon as we do. He may be removed from the machine shop back to the line, but I don't think they can do anything to him. Whoever knew about those keys could easily have done it. They were locked in a locker, and again locked into a compartment of that locker. Whoever had duty could have had those keys, so it was really due to poor precaution. We shall see what we shall see. I'll try to write again in a day or two, but now I must stop. Let us hear your reactions to the picture. Love from all of us to all of you, Sweetie, Lew, and Lewis.
Goodness.
Yeah, and aside from my cat deciding to just make an appearance on this podcast throughout this episode.
Yeah, I saw him. He was over there.
Yeah. That's Franz. Everybody, I think they remember from the first season. He was first introduced when he was healing from a surgery. Clearly, he's fine.
Yeah, he's all better now.
Yep. But we get this huge update with Lew, and then he's got to he's where he wants to be. He knows machines. He's in the machine shop. He's the one that's responsible with everything. And then somebody stole stuff from the machine shop, and he's just terrified by what's going on here, because it's he's put in charge, and then this awful thing happens
right after he's put in charge too.
Right. Yeah.
That just, I mean, I know he's not that kind of person.
Right. Yeah, we know.
But that's really, that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. And it's sad because he came home and obviously it was weighing on him. Mm-hmm. He's taking the opportunities that he gets.
Right.
Which is incredibly admirable. Yeah. He's trying to better himself, and he probably wants to get Sweetie her own typewriter.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Saving up for that.
So that was very unfortunate. I really hope that works out well.
Yeah, that there's some resolution there, but Lew's a good guy. We know it wasn't him. And some people are just awful. Look, thefting is bad. Thefting is wrong. Taxation is theft. That's in there somewhere. But yeah, put that right there. Yeah.
I'm glad you put that in.
LOL. But yeah, the Navy. I mean, he just wants to be working in his machine shop. Just let Lew tinker with engines, okay? He's got a nice thing going here. So let's see if we get some resolution. Let's head into the next letter, which happens a week after.
37 South Love Lane, Norwood, Pennsylvania, August 16th, 1946. Dear Mama and Daddy, Jean, Sister, Bill, et al., Meta, Frank, and Susan. I have received a little mail from you, used collectively, a postal card from Sister on which she gives me a brief synopsis of the news. Very welcome, but she also says, quote, "How about a card from you?" Unquote. She surely can't be so broke that she can't afford a penny postal card, and she has no doubt received my last letter, so I doubt if she is making cracks about my letter writing. Or she is. So I'm doing just as she asks, and I'm sending her a postal card. Blank, of course, except for writing my own address on the usual side. Guess I've got to watch out on these big money investments. Yak, yak, yak. I received the booklet from Daddy that I've read from front to rear already. I was somewhat pleased to see that I've done pretty well in following the book's advice. Perhaps through instinct, or perhaps through coincidence entirely, but nevertheless, I'm pretty pleased. I will send it on, hoping that Lew will read it too. We had a nice long letter from Jean, the novelist. We surely did enjoy the tale of your painting the Biffy at your apartment, and I could only rock on the floor whilst I shrieked with glee over the spray gun and the paint in your nose. How nice it must be now, and I guess your pleasure is ample reward for your labors. You can well imagine that we're very anxious to hear of your trip to Iowa City to see Florence and our new little R. I was so hoping and praying for a boy that when the announcement did come, I was afraid to open it. And yet I was so anxious I didn't know what to do. I was so glad to see the little announcement that said R that I could hardly stand it. I know that Mama and Daddy, as well as all of you, are just as pleased. I did not send Florence a gift, that is, I haven't yet, though I'm going to, when I can get to town to find something, but I did write her a letter and mailed it to the hospital. I hope you can bring KM for a visit to get acquainted with the folks and all, but do write and tell me about it all, won't you? Your baby gifts sound very nice, and I know she will be grateful for them. I will send you identification required for the nylons. In this letter, if I don't forget to do so. We have hot air heat, though I wonder why you ask. Yes, how you did laugh at me, and Frank and Bob, in our sleep-filled efforts to do something. You'd giggle until you could hardly breathe, and then go off on another string of giggles. I'm sure glad that Mama is having her teeth taken care of. I hope it isn't being too much of a drain on her, too. The 2 first-day covers of the RFD stamp will be sufficient. Thanks for them. I have a bunch of pictures taken by Joe Graham on July 4th. Some of them are very good, and others are fair. I begged for a full set of them for his album, and all I got was one of each. So I'm afraid I must warn you, before they are sent, that every one must be returned. Since I've sent you the other photographs, perhaps that won't sound too hard-hearted. Lew was on duty that day, so he isn't to be found. There are several of Lewis alone in his stroller, 3 of them with Lewis and I, and a few with Lewis and Joe, and lots of them with Marguerite, Joe's wife, and Lewis. I think you'll enjoy them, even if you can only look and pass them on. I'll send them first to Daddy and Mama, then they can show them to Sister and to Jean. And Jean, you send them on to Frank and Maida, and Maida, you see that they get back to Lewis's album. Thanks.
Okay, there's a lot going on here.
So much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see. First, her and Sister.
Yep. Yeah.
Are having a little thing.
Yep. Let me send you a blank postal card. There you go. So.
That's fun. I'm sorry.
Yep.
I think that Sister was poking at her and Sweetie got her right back, so that's good.
Yep.
And she's still in her little, and this is still a typed letter. This is still a typed letter. She still has her typewriter.
Yeah. She's responding to a lot of questions coming in pretty rapid fire, it would seem.
Mm-hmm.
So there's things like there's pictures being taken. They're having some sort of reminiscing moment here about giggling, and Mama's got the teeth taken care of. That's been brought up a number of times. Then there's stamps going on. The first day covers of the RFD stamp will be sufficient. That's going to Jean because Jean's doing the whole looking for stamps for Lew thing. But the biggest news, obviously, on this slide is the very happy news that Chester and Laura have another grandson, that Florence has given birth to her son, which changes really the tone of 1946. You know, we can never get away from the sad, awful tragedy that happened at the beginning of April in 1946 when Bob had passed away. But there's something really wonderful about new life coming into the world and knowing that that new life is centered on Florence, you know, and the Demery family.
And you can see Sweetie is so happy.
Oh, she's so relieved.
She's like, I can't even stand it.
Yep. Yeah. She's so happy to hear this. You know, there's nothing you can do about certain things, but she is just over the moon about this. That the family is all around and present. But there's so much of the family just in this one part. And then the passing around of the photos kind of goes back to it as well. Okay, this one goes to this, and then this goes to this, and then that goes to Jean, and that goes to Frank and Maida, and then Maida, you get them. So they're like rotating around all the photos. So there's just happiness about there just being a lot of kids around.
Yeah.
You know,
a lot of
just
new
everything
kids,
in general.
a lot of life. Yeah. It's lovely. This was definitely like just jam-packed with so much stuff. And we're not even halfway through.
Yeah. This is really turning the page in 1946. She's not at 936 Springfield Road. Florence has had the baby. She's writing about giggling. She's reminiscing. So we're getting past something here. It's just nice to see.
You may not have heard the last of Bill Gruning yet, so I hope you'll keep us posted on any more conversations or attempt to get in touch with you. I think now that I have answered most of the questions and commented on your respective letters enough. I'll go on now to tell you what I can before this letter takes on the appearance of a playwright manuscript.
Okay, before she gets into this, for the people that have been listening to this podcast from the beginning are like, wait, what do we mean Bill Gruning's back in the storyline somehow? This hasn't been in the storyline since I would say like the episodes like 30 through 36, somewhere around that time frame. This is when Sweetie was in Kansas. So for people who are new, if you're looking back, those are the episodes to look back to. Jean was dating a blind lawyer by the name of Bill Gruning. And she was considering marrying Bill Gruning. And it didn't happen because she kept seeking from family members advice. And Sweetie's advice was really, I think if you're not sure of it yourself, you're probably not going to go forward with this. And that was the last we heard about Bill Gruning, was the end of 1944 in Hutchinson, Kansas. This reminds me so much of David Chase. All of a sudden, out of the blue, Jean is being contacted.
I was just thinking of that. Oh my gosh.
She's like, is there something going on here? What's going on? He's attempting to reach out to Jean again. So at least they're still acquaintances. No idea on what this is going to mean for the future. But that story is not 100% concluded as of this statement. So for people that wanted more updates, for people that have been listening, definitely was kind of like, wait, I didn't expect to see that name again. For people new, go back to especially the fall of 1944. Those episodes, that's where you're going to find information about Bill Gruning.
I wrote you of the stolen tools. Lew made out a report stating that he was on a 48-hour liberty at the time of the theft. He also said that the keys were easily accessible during that time, and nothing more has developed. Lew personally suspects one of the chiefs, but he cannot point an accusing finger at him without more to go on. I guess that they will have to be replaced, but since Lew did not sign any sort of property sheet, he will not be held for the price of the things, which is mighty good since they amount to well over $100. We do not yet consider the matter taken care of, for he may yet be called up before the captain or the executive officer. You may think that all these mistakes were made accidentally. They weren't. I always write chiefs like that, and so they are intentional.
Okay, so a little bit of resolution here. Lew wasn't there when the theft happened, so he's in the clear. The Navy, or whoever lost out here is not going to be charging him for the missing supplies from the machine shop. It seems that it's basically resolved itself. Who knows if the thief is ever going to be caught. I do find that she already is suspicious. She's like, I think it was this person. At least Lew's in the clear.
We have been devouring the want ads to find a car for sale that would be worth the exorbitant prices that are being asked these days. We have haunted some dealers that we thought might be reliable men, but we didn't have any luck. One of Lew's friends came down to tell him that he could buy a 34 Chevrolet for $75 if he wanted to. He went down to see it, found that the internal workings were pretty good. He had a new motor job, replaced Kingping's, new battery, 2 new rear tires, and the 2 front ones, only slightly worn. The body is pretty rough. One funning board is missing, and the body needs paint. So he bought it. Just as he had closed the deal, another friend came to say that his boss, one of the dealers we had talked to, had a 36 Oldsmobile turned in as a trade-in, and he would sell it to Lew if he wanted it. Well, Lew went and looked it over and said he wanted it, just like that. We had given the man a sob story about Lew having to get up so early and hitchhiking to get to and from the base each night, and all that there sort of stuff, and so he said he would sell it to Lew at the as-is ceiling price of $275. It is a pretty blue-green car, very well taken care of. There is not a rough spot on it. Not a dent in the fenders or a bit of rust on the fenders. We don't know how he could let it go for such a price as that. Lew has already taken it, and a fellow at the base told him he could resell it for Lew for $650, and I firmly believe it. We looked for cars here, and you can't imagine the prices they are asking and getting for cars here. We could have sold that Graham we had in Des Moines for as high as $500 if we had driven it here. It has good retread tires, a radio, and it is in fine shape. It does need a little work done on the clutch, but Lew thinks he can do it himself to save money. I'm sure you'd all say that it is a good buy. We surely are thrilled with it.
They got a car.
They got a car. This is so
a good
important.
car.
A good one.
They
got kind of a not so good one. And then a good one. He got a deal he couldn't pass up.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Yeah. He got this nice 36 Oldsmobile. So any of the car fans listening are probably like, oh, cool. Old Oldsmobile. Very fun. And then there's a lot of car terminology here I don't even pretend to understand. This is not my realm. But people who are listening who are, have fun with that whole commentary that she gives about things. But the wonderful thing is he's going to work on that clutch. I don't drive stick shift, but I understand what clutch is. No, I'm like, I'm all automatic. I'm sorry. Like, this is one of those debates. I know, like, a lot of people that drive cars, and especially the classic car guys, they all love manual. I just, no interest.
I'm sorry. I had to search it up real quick on my phone.
Yeah.
To see what this car would look like.
Yeah, the 36 Olds.
They're so pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's a good looking car.
It's kind of hard to imagine. I mean, and I'm assuming this has probably got a front seat and a back seat, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. Like I mean, that would be a way better than a 34 Chevrolet, definitely.
Yeah. They got a good deal here. But yeah, and then he says he can work on it himself. Well, he works at a machine shop.
Exactly. He can take care of anything that needs to probably be taken care of it. And if he can't, I'm willing to bet he knows people.
Yeah.
Now I know if Sweetie was hesitant, let's say it that way lightly, hesitant to come out to Philadelphia. Yeah. But I think that Lew has a community already built there that he was able to tap. He was able to get friends to help him move. He was able to get people to help him find a car. I mean, he was talking to his friends about jobs. So this is really good for him. They were able to get that, I mean, $275 to $650. Maybe they should have just sold it and pocketed the rest.
Maybe. But I think they want to have that reliable, it's that freedom.
She needs
How much was she feeling trapped for the last number of episodes in the entirety of the spring? She's stuck at 936 Springfield Road. She's hoping she can borrow Elizabeth's typewriter. She's still writing letters by hand through most of that April and May. She doesn't have a car. She could only really walk where she wanted to get to. Then she borrows Elizabeth's car. She couldn't be self-sufficient, And then we see the transformation in this story. They're at Love Lane. She has independence. They have their own car. She doesn't feel as stuck. Hence all the happiness. And then, of course, we have the great news from Florence, from Iowa. Like, just everything about it's like, okay, things seem to be starting to come together in Pennsylvania, and it's taken a while, but it really feels like we're turning a page here in 1946. We're kind of clearing the air of just all of the depression of the first half, where she was about to leave. She was about to go back to Iowa, and now it's like, okay, all right, we're dealing with it. So I'm just really happy for her.
You've all asked when we were coming out, and I think now that I can at least give you our tentative plans. Lewis and I will come out alone about the middle of the month of September, possibly a little sooner than that, depending on when the family allotment checks come through. Lew will apply for leave in October and drive out after us, and we will all three drive back together at the end of his leave, and we may even stop at the relatives in Indiana. That way, I'll be there a little while before Frank and Maida and Susan come, and I'll be there while they are there, and perhaps for a little while after they leave. I think that this is the best way to do it, and so we leave this as our plan, at least for now. Just after I wrote you last, and put the letter in the mail, Lewis surprised me by just suddenly tearing out across the floor at a fast crawl. I was quite surprised. He doesn't crawl very much, though, just to pull himself over to a chair or something, so that he can pull himself up to his feet and walk. He does love to go outside, and will invariably go to the door as fast as he can. He isn't safe any longer, for we do not have any hooks on the screen doors, and he is much too likely to fall out onto the cement steps. He refuses to sit down in his high chair for more than 15 seconds at a time, and though he has been reset many times, he still will stand. This morning he started to fall and struck the table with his cheek. He didn't really get hurt. It did scare him, though, and he clung to me tightly while he yelled, and then when I sniffed, a la Jeff, down his neck he quit the crying to giggle uproariously. He may have a slight bruise on his cheek, but I can assure you his posterior will be bruised too, if he doesn't soon learn. He has taken a step or two alone, when he thought he might fall, and made a last effort to reach something and prevent the fall. But he is still far from steady on his feet. I don't think it will be too long, though, before he tears out to walk, just as he tore out to crawl. Well, I think he is pretty darn nice. So there, too. Since I'm almost certain that there will be mail from you today, I think that I'll stop here and write again when I have somebody's letters to answer. I'll try to write in a day or two, for I'll just have to return this typewriter, since I've kept it much too long now. Love to all of you. Sweetie, Lew, and Lewis.
He finally crawled.
He's tearing out across the place. Now, he's almost a year old at this point. So the question is he really going to start walking without just like hanging onto things? That's the perception I've got, is he kind of edges around things, hangs onto furniture, stuff like that. Susie seems to be walking about from what Frank and Maida are communicating, but she's hoping to see them. She's like, okay, I'm going to get to Iowa. I'm going to get to be with family soon. This is going to be a huge relief to her. And in that vein, we have one little quick note here that she's going to send a few days after that letter. So I'm just going to let that play.
37 South Love Lane, August 19th, 1946. Dear Jean, if you have the Demery family book, please look up the location of the Jersey homestead and send it to me at once. Since we have the car, I want very much to go up there before I make the trip home. I'd like to go on Lew's next 48. He has today and tomorrow off, and you know how hard it is to get work done while he's home. I was afraid I'd be unable to get letters written, so I'm sending out cards to make sure everybody understands. I thought I'd keep it a secret until I got home, but I guess I'll have to tell you. Lewis surprised us by walking just Friday night. I was going to wait until I got there, but just couldn't make it. Now, don't you tell. You are the only one who knows. I expect to be there in the early part of September if all goes as planned. Daddy is the only one who has had a comment on picture. Love, Sweetie, Lew, and Lewis.
So he walked.
He's walking now. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so sweet. And she sent a little card to. I have to tell you.
Yeah.
I read these letters. I usually will read the letters a couple of days before. I'll get a couple of episodes read, so I have an idea of what's going on. But to hear you read them, it gets like you get that. It kind of feels a little bit more like a conversation. Like, and I kind of pick up some things sometimes that I don't pick up when I'm just reading to myself. So it's always fun to hear you make those.
It's interesting trying to record the audio on these because sometimes I have to look at like the way the phrasing happens. Some of them obviously more difficult to read than others. But in this letter, it's interesting because there's all these, and I'm totally endlessly amused by this, the parts where Lewis is the baby, and then there's baby sounds. Deal with, and it's like I know these characters, like outside a lot of characters I never met, but knowing Sweetie, when she was older, she was always very direct, so when she mentions the part about the posterior, to me, I had, of my two grandparents, I always thought she was very stern, and Aunt Jean was very, to me, intimidating, because, I was a kid, and, like, Jean was, like, this big personality that I couldn't quite comprehend. I wish I could sit down with both of them, and have a coffee and things like that, that'd be in the same age range to be able to talk with them, but I can see the things that carried through to later life, so I just get these ideas about how she would be thinking things, and her moment of pride at the end of this section, I'm getting home to Iowa. How happy she was to go to Iowa. That's one of the things that I never did with her. As kids, we never traveled to Iowa with our grandmother. There was like a reunion of some sort that happened with the Demerys. I think in the early 2000s or late 90s. I would have been in middle school, high school at the time. Kind of wish I was there, but I understand why I wasn't. It was just like a gathering of certain individuals. But that desire to just hit the road and go, yeah, it's felt all over this letter. And then next week, we're going to get some follow-up with that. There's going to be a little bit of gap here, but we'll leave that for next week. There's so much to talk about in episode 50. Episode 50 is a big one. I hope everybody listens in to next week's letters as we get to hear the play out of the end, the fall of 1946 here. And then as we start heading towards 1947. But they're a delight to read, Jamie. They really are.
Yeah.
So.
Oh. Well, and this was a big episode and a lot of stuff happened. Big episode, a lot of stuff happened. But there's where we ended.
Yep.
So I guess we'll see you all next week.
See everybody next week.